Hey there everyone, and welcome to this module on coaching juniors. I'm going to be presenting it with fellow PGA professional Helena Buitendag. So she's going to come in on some of the other skills and other exercises that we're going to present to you, and hopefully you can take these away and use them to either help your juniors or even your other golfers of various skills and abilities. So the goal of this module is really to go through what we feel are important keys when it comes to setting up practice plans or practice exercises or drills that are going to help your juniors to improve their golf. We tend to spend a lot of time on the driving range working on technique and on their golf swings, but ultimately if we want them to become great golfers one day, they need to develop skills when it comes to their putting, chipping, pitching, bunker play, wedge play, and indeed hitting the golf ball. So we want to make sure that they're covering all their bases and that they're using their time and their practice wisely. Okay, so when it comes to creating a practice exercise or a practice drill, there's really three things that we want to take into account, and I would highly recommend that you go and have a look at Game Life Training. I've taken this information from them. They've done a lot of research into skill development and motor learning, and these are the three things that need to be in place for someone to improve by using a specific exercise. So the first thing when developing any exercise that we're looking for is we're looking for something called time or spacing. So if you look, when we play around a golf, we're going to have to walk in between shots. We're then going to go through our routine before we hit the next shot. So when we practice, we want to, in some way or form, we want to try and create that within our practice. Okay, the second thing that we really want to get right when putting together an exercise for someone to do is we want some sort of variation or variety. Okay, so we don't want to be standing there over a 3-footer hitting the same putt over and over again, because then we're not covering the skills that we would need when we get on the course, which would be green reading, start line control, and speed control. The final thing, which is really important when putting these exercises together, is what we would call challenge. So we want to create an appropriate challenge for the person's skill set. So every person's obviously at a different skill level when it comes to their golf, or even putting, for instance. So when we develop an exercise for them, we want to come up with something that takes into account what we call the challenge point and make it appropriate for them. So very basically what challenge point is we want to develop an exercise which is just hard enough to push them outside of their current skill set or skill level. The problem is if we make it too easy, the challenge or the exercise, they're going to finish it very quickly. They're not going to have to persevere at all. And like I said, they're not going to learn or improve much from it. On the flip side, if we make the challenge too hard for said individual, they're going to really struggle. They're probably not going to finish it. It's going to be demotivating, and that in turn is not going to help their golf. So ultimately, every challenge that we give has to be appropriate for the person doing it. And like I said, we want it to be just outside of their current skill set or current level of ability, so that it pushes them. They have to be engaged. They're going to have to work hard and persevere to get through the task, but by doing so, they're going to grow and improve. Okay, so the first basic exercise that I've got here on the putting green is what we'd call a spiral drill. The cones progress from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 and then to 7 feet. And this can be used for any level of golfer if we provide the correct the correct form of challenge or the correct amount of challenge for the person that's doing it. So what I like about an exercise like this, it covers our three bases in terms of the three important things for someone to improve their skill set. Firstly, if we talk about time or spacing, I've got a golf ball here, so I encourage them to only use one ball when they're practicing. So they would start at the first putt, and whether they hole it or not, they're going to have to walk and fetch their ball before hitting the next putt. So it's going to require them to go through their full routine, and like I said, there's going to be a little bit of time and spacing in between each putt because they're going to have to walk and collect their ball. Okay, so the second thing that I really like about it is they're going to have to move from one cone to the next. So from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 feet, not only is the distance changing, but also the direction they're putting from, and therefore because they're putting from a different direction, it's also going to have a different break or different amount of slope. So they're going to have to take into account the speed they're hitting the putt as well as taking into account how much they think it's going to break, which will change from one putt to the next. In terms of challenge, this is where it becomes really interesting. I could use this same exercise for a wide variety of golfers if I change the challenge. Okay, so for someone who's a novice, I would make this relatively easy. So what I would say to them, to complete the task, they need to just hole one putt from each of the 5 cones. Okay, so they start the first cone, whether they hole it first time round or if it takes them 4 or 5 attempts, it doesn't matter. They can then, once they've holed one putt, move on to the next cone, and so forth, all the way until they've holed that last putt from 7 feet. Okay, someone who's maybe a more intermediate golfer, someone who's one of maybe your better juniors, how we could adjust this challenge for them, they could do exactly the same thing, but they're going to start from the first cone. Every time that they hole a putt, they're going to be allowed to move to the next cone along. So every time they hole a putt, they can keep moving down. The difference now is that every time they miss a putt, they're going to have to go back to the previous cone as well. So all of a sudden, the challenge is a lot higher, but it's going to be more appropriate for someone who's a slightly better player. Okay. Finally, if we wanted to make it really difficult for someone who's maybe more of an elite amateur or an elite junior, what we could say to them is they would need to hole all 5 putts in a row for me. So they can start the first cone. If they hole it, they can move on to the next one and so forth, all the way down. But if at any point they miss a putt, they're going to have to then move back to the first cone and start from there. So again, very simple exercise, covers our 3 bases of time and spacing, nice variety because they're having to move from one cone to the next, which have different reads and different lengths of putt. And then they also, like I said, we can adjust it to provide the right challenge for the appropriate golfer. So I hope that helps, and I'm sure that you're going to enjoy the other exercises that Helena and I put together in this module. So let's take those 3 things into account when creating exercises for our junior golfers, and no doubt that they're going to be able to then enjoy practicing. It's going to be fun and engaging, and they're going to develop the necessary skill sets that they need to become better players.
Can I go?
Yeah, go for it. Awesome.
So if I miss a putt, just return before.
Yeah, if you miss, you go back the cone to the previous one, and every time you make, you get to move on forward. And the thing I like about this is each putt, obviously the line and the length is changing.
Yeah.
And then by only going with one ball in that like this, you can see how we're going to have to go through our full routine every time. Eh? Awesome. Loving the focus. So can you feel about having like a little bit of a challenge like that, how it's forcing you to really, like I said, go through your full routine, treat it like a putt on the course. Nice. I'm gonna have to make this exercise harder for you. Okay, back to the previous cone. And obviously you could set this up with tees. You don't have to use tones. They're just a little bit easier to see in the video, the photo. Okay, starts in the beginning. So what you're going to find, a lot of this is more than just the actual putting. A lot of it's actually like focus and routine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Keeping that going over and over and over again. Nice. Okay, second one. Nice. Awesome. Okay, cone 4. Nice little 7-footer. Great putt. Okay, one to go. If we hold this one, exercise complete. Oh, unlucky. Okay, back to the previous one. Little firm. Okay, cone 3. Easier or harder than what you expected? Harder. So the thing with this is like is that there's essentially inverted commas pressure on every putt, isn't there? Oh, bit firm, eh? Nice. Back in first gear. Awesome. Great putt. But come on, let's nail that last one. Yes, well done, task complete. Okay, welcome to Strand Golf Club. I'm really excited to have fellow PJ professional Helena Buitendag with me today, and we're going to run through a couple exercises she uses very regularly with her juniors. We're going to apply those 3 principles we spoke about in the first video, and see how we can then adapt the challenge point for golfers of different abilities. Okay, so the first exercise that we're going to run through today is a nice holing out exercise that I know she uses really often with her juniors. I call it a compass drill. I'm not sure what she calls it, but like I said, it varies from different length putts and different angles, and she's going to quickly run through for me how she would run it with one of her novice juniors. So Helena, how would you run through this exercise with one of your novice juniors?
All right, thank you very much, Murray. It's nice to have you here as well today. So what I would do is I would set up 4 cones on a 3-foot circle.
Perfect.
And then 4 cones on a 6-foot circle.
Awesome.
And especially for the novices, we try and make it as easy as possible so that they don't get frustrated, but that they learn in the same way. So we'll start on 1 cone, and they can have as many chances as they have to actually get the ball into the hole. As soon as they get it into the hole, they move on to the next level. Until they complete all the 3-foot putts, and then they move on to your 6-foot putt, and we work in that one in the same strategy. So starting at 1 until they hold it out, moving to the next one just to change it up a little bit.
Awesome, I love that exercise. Like I said, I think it really encapsulates the 3 points I spoke about in the opening video. The first thing, I know you do it a lot, but having them use just 1 ball would mean that there's time and spacing. They'd have to, if the putt doesn't go in, they're going to have to walk and fetch their ball before they come back. So they're going to have to go through their routine, which I really like. There's a nice variety or variation to the putts, so they're going to have to putt from different lengths and different angles, which is going to be great for them developing their speed and green reading skills. And then the last thing is, I think that challenge is very appropriate for a novice golfer. If we set anything more difficult for them, they're really going to struggle at it. So I think that's very appropriate for them. I think what's really cool about a simple exercise like this is how we could then adapt it to someone of different abilities. Like I said, for the novice, that would be a great way to do it. For an intermediate, we could really look at some fun ways to make it more difficult for them. We might say to them, let's look at a score out of 8 that we want you to get. So starting at one of the 3-footers, alternating between the 3 and 6-footers. So red cone, yellow cone, red cone, yellow cone. So having to change length would be more difficult for them. So a bit more variety for them, a bit more challenge in the sense maybe we'd say to them, we want you to get 6 out of 8. You can only try it once from each cone. And if you don't achieve your 6 out of 8, let's start over from the beginning. And again, that number out of 8 could depend on obviously the player's putting ability at present. If we wanted to make it really difficult for someone who's maybe an elite amateur or junior level, or maybe even a professional, we could say to them, you need to score 6 or 7 out of 8. We could decide on their level. But maybe the difference there with them would be that we'd say if they don't achieve their 6 or 7 out of 8, we're going to collect all the cones and go and set it up in a new hole, because all of a sudden now, after the first attempt, they already knew the reads. So by moving holes, then obviously it's going to make it much more difficult because they don't know the reads the second time around. Cool. Thank you very much for putting that out for us, Helena, and I'm looking forward to presenting the third part of it and the third exercise.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Cool. Okay, go for it. Nice. Okay, and alternating between the 3 and 6 footers. So the next one would be a 6 footer at the back there. Again, similar to the previous exercise, every time we're changing direction, but we're also changing length. Nice. Okay. Okay, so 2 out of the first 4, eh? So we need all of the last 4 to complete. Nice. Come on, you can do it. Full routine, more focus. Yes, awesome. Okay, come, 2 to go. If we hold both of them, task complete. Nice. Okay, this is it. So 6 feet to win your next tournament. Full routine, roll it down that line. Oh. Okay, unlucky. Okay, reset. So from the first cone again. So yeah, if we were doing it on our own, what I'd like to see is you would then move it to a new hole. I think for today, just because we're going through the tasks to show you how to do them, let's leave it on this hole and then let's see if we can get 6 out of 8 the second time. But it makes sense to change holes each time when you're on your own, eh? Nice. Either a little firm for that line or we need to go a little straighter, eh? Take slightly less break. So trying to learn from each putt that doesn't drop. Nice. Close. Excellent. Well done. Come on, 3 to go. You can hold all 3 of these. Task complete. Yes, good roll. 2 to go. Nice. Okay, so again, putting yourself under a little bit of pressure, 6 feet to win that next junior tournament you're playing in. Let's nail it. Pick your reed, roll it down there. Ooh, also a little low.
You've got a recommendation. So Richard texted me and was like, go to Murray for a putting lesson. Send Christian to Murray for a putting lesson.
What's how the next few tournaments go? That's when we book the
Have you seen his weird putter he's got?
that's fine.
That's that one that goes like that, yeah.
He putt carefully with that. I've probably tried a couple others.
Yeah, he's got it like.
Yeah.
Did you give him a lesson?
Yeah, I've been working with him for a couple months now.
Ah, that's why he texted me. Okay, cool.
Close. Good. So the 3-footers have been super solid, haven't they? You can see that. So it's just at the 6-footers that we're not quite making our share yet, eh? Which is the nice thing about this exercise. It tends to show up very quickly whether it's the short stuff that we're not making, or if we need to be a little tidier at that sort of 6-foot range. Awesome, there we go. Because essentially at the standard we've set for you, if you hold all 4 of the 3-footers, you only have to hold 2 out of the 4 6-footers, eh, to complete the task. Nice. Nice confident stroke, love it. Great. Awesome. So you completed the task, but let's get a 7 out of 8 there, just because. Because in a couple months' time, what do you think we're going to do? Bump it up to 7 out of 8, and then possibly even 8 out of 8 in the long run, as you get better at the exercise. Drop. Hey, there we go. Nice. Okay, so only difference between what we did now and when you do it on your own is, like I said, we would move holes each time, because obviously doing it the way you have now, after a few times around, you've kind of worked out the lines, eh? Okay, so welcome to Strand again for our third exercise. We're here on the beautiful putting green at Strand Country Club. We're joined again by Helena, and we're going to go through a really cool exercise that incorporates speed control this time for the juniors. So Helena's going to run us through the exercise that we've got in place and how she would work through it with one of her sort of novice juniors, one of her newer juniors.
Awesome, thank you very much, Murray. It's nice to have you here. So how we set it up is we've got an alignment stick that is about 3 feet away from the hole, just to encourage the children to hit the ball past the hole and work on that distance control. And then we've set up the cones on 2, 4 and 6 paces, so a little bit of a longer putt, and then it is on a downhill slope. And then we've set a second station up exactly in the same way, with the alignment stick 3 feet away, and then the yellow cones being 2, 4 and 6 paces away from the hole. But that one is an uphill putt, so just to vary it a little bit. And how I would run my juniors through this is we will start on the downhill side from 2 paces away. We'll have one ball and we will try and get them either in the hole or behind the hole before the alignment stick. And as soon as they get that, they move on to the next level. They are not limited on the amount of turns they get. They can just continue till the ball reaches the target, and then move all the way through the 4 steps and 6 steps as well. And then we move on to the yellow station, and we work through it exactly the same way.
Awesome. Again, I love that exercise. You know, it's so simple. A junior could use tees and clubs instead of cones and alignment sticks, so they didn't have those with them. The other thing I really like about it, again, it covers those 3 bases we spoke about. So if we had them using one ball only, there's time and space. They've got to go fetch their ball each time and then come back and go through their full routine again. In terms of variability or variety, every time they execute a putt correctly, either in the hole or past it without hitting the stick, they get to move back to the next cone, and once they finish these 3, they get to do the other side. And in terms of challenge, I mean, perfect challenge point for a novice golfer, because again, it's not so difficult that they can't compete it. Once they get one right, they get to move on and never having to move back or do anything along those lines.
Oh, it's amazing. Murray, how would you change it for intermediate or elite golfer?
So I think for an intermediate golfer, the first thing I'd be looking to do is get them to alternate between the red and the yellow cones. You know, obviously a little bit more challenging because now they're having to change from maybe an uphill to a downhill putt, or a downhill to an across the slope putt, or depending on how you set it up over here. The other thing we could look at doing is, if they're a little bit more advanced, we could maybe make the cones further apart or further from the hole. That would definitely make the challenge a little bit higher. And then for an elite level player, for the intermediate, what we would also look to do is say to them, you know, once they get one correct, either in the hole or past the hole between and before the stick, they would actually then have to move to the next cone. But every time they get one wrong, they would then have to go back to the previous one. So it's a little bit more challenging because there's a result that's sort of added in there, whether they execute or not. And then when it comes to an elite level player, the thing I would look to do is say to them, they're going to start at the beginning, they're going to alternate between red and yellow, and gradually zigzag their way back. But what I would say to them is, if they miss any of the 6, so in other words, leave it short or hit the stick at the back, I would get them to start over from the beginning. But you can see how difficult that would become for an elite level player, exactly the kind of challenge they would need, but maybe not appropriate for one of our newer golfers.
I mean, that's amazing. Thank you, Murray. It's nice to see how we will challenge different level of juniors. So I look forward to applying that to my own coaching. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so exactly. So it's got to be either in the hole, or it's got to finish between the hole past it and the alignment stick. Front one on this side. Then you've got a bit of holding our practice subject. Okay, so number 2 walk. Yeah, exactly that one. So not back to the beginning, that'll come later. Now you just go back to the previous pose. That's a good part, but a little bit short, eh? So back to the previous pose, which should be the front of the other one. In the hole, but it's between the hole and the stick, so we're happy. Number 2. We're really focused here on getting good speed over and over again, and then trusting that in some of them we will get the read right and it'll drop. Great roll. Okay, 3 watts. In. Might have been a little firm, but it's in. Good. Okay, last one. So 3 yellow. This one we can either get it in the hole or to finish in between the hole and that alignment stick. Then we're happy. Done it. Oh, short. Okay, so 3 watts again. No, that then I'll count as going fast. But yeah, if you get a complete horseshoe and it comes back out the front, I'll be fine. Yeah, how you doing? Good speed. Perfect. I mean, if you keep hitting putts from that range at that speed, eventually a few of them will drop, won't they? Okay, perfect. Okay, so happy with how that works, eh? So really focused on giving it good speed over and over again, and then trusting that, and you saw it happen, that eventually you're going to get the read right and you're going to box a few. But by getting the speed right over and over again, it gives you a chance, one, of holding it, but two, it takes the three putt out, doesn't it? If you're finishing within 3 foot past the hole, you're never really going to three putt. And like I said, for now we'll play it snakes and ladders, where each time you get a right, you can move back one, each time you miss, move forward one. But very soon, but like what Jack's doing, you'd need to get all 6 in a row. Otherwise, if at any point you miss one of those, then you start over from the beginning again. Cool.